Do the thing that makes you come alive because far too few of us are actually alive. To compensate for the emptiness, we work even harder. Busy is not the same thing as healed, but it can give the illusion of being healed or healthy.
We can really have those porous boundaries because of the way that so many of us have been conditioned. We learn to take care of everyone else and we can abandon ourselves in the process. Self-abandonment, people-pleasing, all the consequences of not having those healthy boundaries.
Sometimes I have to say no, and being willing to say no, even though some people won't like it, some people might be disappointed, some people will be bothered by your boundaries, and that's okay. When we're struggling, we disappear, we hide, we don't let people see our struggle. We just show up shiny and strong. Then I have to say, what are the ways I am co-creating this system that denies my humanity?
Hello and welcome. I'm Celine Chenoy, and this is the Dreamcatcher Podcast, a space for thoughtful, unhurried conversations about how we live and what truly matters. I am really glad you're here.
Caring for our emotional and relational well-being is something many of us overlook in the busyness of life. The way we relate to ourselves quietly shapes the quality of every relationship we build with others. My guest today is Dr. Thema Bryant, who brings a compassionate perspective to emotional healing. Her work explores how patterns like self-neglect, people-pleasing, and unresolved wounds shape the way we show up in relationships, and how healing begins when we reconnect with ourselves. Dr. Thema is a licensed psychologist, professor, ordained minister, and past president of the American Psychological Association. Through her clinical work, teaching, and writing, she helps people cultivate greater self-awareness, self-compassion, and healthier relationships. In this conversation, we explore the ideas in her book, Matters of the Heart, including healing self-abandonment, building emotional availability, and nurturing relationships that support our well-being. If you've ever felt disconnected from yourself or wondered how to create more authentic relationships, this is an episode you'll appreciate. Dr. Thema, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I am really grateful to be here and in you.
Well, we're excited to have you on. So, I have to say that I really enjoyed your book, Matters of the Heart. What struck me right away was your sincere invitation for all of us to slow down and really tend to the condition of our own hearts, something that many of us tend to overlook in the busyness of our lives. I think that a lot of listeners will recognize themselves in that idea that you put forth in your writing. So I'm really looking forward to exploring some of the wisdom behind your work and what it really means to heal our relationships, both with ourselves and with others. I think it's going to be a great conversation.
How wonderful. I'm so glad you were able to read the book and found, reflections in there to be able to share with your audience. So that's beautiful.
Great. So, Dr. Thema, before we dive into the ideas of the book, I'd love to begin with you and your journey that led you where you are today.
Mhm.
So, you're a psychologist, a
Yes.
professor, a minister, and someone who has spent decades helping people heal emotionally and relationally. What originally drew you to this work of supporting people in tending to their hearts? And was there a particular moment or experience that shaped your mission?
Yes, absolutely. So I grew up primarily in Baltimore, Maryland, and my dad was a pastor. And so within our community, people were more likely to go and seek counsel from their faith leader as opposed to going to a therapist or a psychologist. And so I grew up seeing that of him being an emotional support for people, for our members and people from the community. I often say my first time working a crisis hotline was actually in my home because people would just call all times of day or night when they were facing difficulties. And then my mother later, maybe when I was about 10 or so, she started doing women's ministry.
Mhm.
And so she wrote devotional books for women. She would host women's retreats. And so all of that exposed me to the importance of healing, wellness, wholeness, how to live our best lives. And then it was probably as a teenager when I heard about psychology that it was a role in and of itself. And that really felt like me, both what I was exposed to and seeing my parents do that work. But then personality wise, I was always considered to be a sensitive child, to feel things very deeply. And, sometimes people think of sensitivity as a problem or a weakness, but as a therapist, it's a superpower to be, empathetic and really open-hearted. So I feel like the work also chose me.
So interesting. You sit at a very interesting intersection of different fields. So I'd imagine that you have so many perspectives on various issues, and
Yes.
that's got to be really, really helpful for
Mhm.
you.
It does. I, consider myself in many ways a bridge between the mental health community and faith community. And many times those worlds don't understand each other. So sometimes people who consider themselves spiritual or religious will say, you don't need mental health, you just need to pray. And,
Yeah.
you can be a very spiritual person or a very religious person and still deal with grief or anxiety or depression or even addiction. And so it's important that it's not a either or,
Yeah.
but the both and.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
my first exposure to those two sides marrying was when I started watching videos by TD Jakes.
Yes.
Heard of him?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
yeah,
Right.
even though I'm not a Christian, I still
Yeah.
could
Could
resonate with
get
what he was
something out of
saying.
it.
Even though he was
Yeah.
referencing the Bible, I still found
Mhm.
it very empowering, and I could kind of
Yes.
extract the teachings from whatever
Hmm.
he was talking about.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
It's a great example. So
Mhm.
true. Those kind of like life lessons and
Mhm.
wisdom that we can apply to our lives. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's get into your book. So it begins with the idea that tending to the heart is something that many of us overlook in life, as I mentioned earlier. And I'd like to know what inspired you to write this book, and what are the patterns that you have seen in your clinical work or in the broader culture that
Mhm.
made you feel that this conversation was really needed right now?
Yes. I've discovered, both in my practice of working with people clinically and also in my research, the big power of relationships, that relationships can be a major source of our strength, of our healing, of our resilience. If you're facing a hard time, but you feel like you're not in it by yourself, how healing that can be. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I've seen when the ways that unhealthy relationships can have devastating consequences, can really leave us in a place of being shaken and disconnected, even from ourselves. And so, the fact that it can be what we would call a protective factor when relationships are done well, it can protect our mental health. And then on the other side, how it can be a source of stress
Mm.
and even a source of trauma when they are toxic or dysfunctional. And so, really wanting to respond to people's questions, because some of these things about relating to ourselves and relating to other people, we may have never been explicitly told.
Yeah.
People just like think you're just supposed to know it.
Yeah,
And,
I'd figure it out.
there are skills, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There are skills in relating to people and
Mm.
understanding people and ourselves. And so wanting to share that information.
Mm. Yeah. And I mean, there's obviously not enough of this sort of education in society because we're witnessing symptoms of people who are not happy in
Yes.
their relationships. I mean, the loneliness
Hmm.
epidemic, and
Yes.
it seems like everyone is functioning okay externally, but inside they're not feeling connected with themselves. They're feeling a sense
Yes.
of void. Is that something that you're noticing
Yeah.
in your work?
Absolutely. We can uh, be productive and still not really have peace. And I
Mm,
just said they're functioning. We're going through like the motions of living, but that question of like, how's my heart?
mm,
Right? And sometimes, to compensate for the emptiness, we work even harder. And I like to
yeah.
say busy is not the same thing as healed, but it can give the illusion of being healed or healthy because you're doing all those things like you must be doing great. But sometimes people are driven by a desire to try to feel worthy or to
Mm,
feel valuable or to feel like we're enough. And so, like chasing significance but still feeling empty. Or when we have invested all of our time and energy in our working lives, but neglected those matters of the heart. So then we don't really have people to share it with.
yeah. Do you think it's because we live in a meritocracy in a capitalist society? Um, that we don't,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, I think in part we do um, live in a society, there's kind of it's a two-edged sword, but a part of the messaging is that the busier you are, the more important you must be. Like we have
Mm,
this saying of like booked and busy, right?
yes.
Or this pressure to turn, even your hobbies are now supposed to be streams of income,
Yes.
where people will be like, if you're not making money off of it, why are you doing it? And so there is a negative um, association with stillness, right? There's a negative association with just being able to be with yourself or to
Mm,
nourish your relationships, even though those are the things that are really essential to our fulfillment, as opposed to just um, accumulating,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, and you do highlight the importance of cultivating a healthy relationship with ourselves, and that can
Yes.
only happen if we dedicate
Hmm.
time for that, if we have time for
Yeah.
self-reflection and those self-care
Hmm.
practices that can help
That's
us
right.
give us that time and space
Yeah.
to really go within. You talk about the importance of self-compassion and even self-forgiveness, two really, really important things that we need to pay attention to. So Dr. Thema, for listeners who are tend to be very hard on themselves, what does real self-compassion look like in practice?
Hmm. Self-compassion is a perspective of showing myself grace and understanding.
Mm,
And so to be my own friend,
yeah.
to be kind to myself, to not judge myself harshly, to silence that inner critic,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and to appreciate my progress and appreciate and accept myself.
Mm.
Those are the roots of self-compassion.
Yeah. And what are some steps that people can take to begin cultivating it?
Yeah. So I would encourage us to say, what are the things that I'm going to do today as acts of love for myself? And so it can be in our very simple care practices of uh, turning off the television and going to bed earlier
Mm.
as an act of compassion so that tomorrow I'm not exhausted. Or when I am eating, not just going to what we would say like we're rewarding ourselves with like sweets, but instead to say, because I value my life and health, I want to put some vegetables on this plate. I want to drink some water. And so letting those acts of self-compassion. And then
Mhm.
I'll also say boundary setting.
Yeah.
Let me
The
love
big one.
myself enough to
Mm.
say no to some things
Mm.
and no to some people so that I'm not overextended and overworked, that I'm going to protect my peace in that way.
Mm.
Yeah. So resting, nourishing foods, boundary setting, all of those can be acts of self-compassion.
Yes. But it seems like, uh, for instance, treating ourselves to sweets, that's actually seen as a way of self-care. I mean, that's what it's seen as, right? You give yourself a treat. You've had a hard day of
Uh-huh.
work, and so sometimes it can be hard to see it as an act of self-care, of self-compassion.
Yeah, it is. We really have to flip the script
Right.
that the things that aren't healthy, we call them a treat. Like it's not good for me, but it's a reward. So
Mm.
it's like to really think about that. In what way is this a reward to me?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And boundary setting. Oh my goodness, that is a huge one. And you really touch on that as well. We can really have those porous boundaries because of the way that so many of us have been conditioned. We learn to take care of everyone else and we can abandon ourselves in the process. I mean, I know that's happened to me at some point in my life.
Mhm. Yeah.
And yeah, self-abandonment, people pleasing, all the consequences of not having those healthy boundaries. So,
Mhm.
Dr. Thema, what does having boundaries look like in real life? And how does that prevent us from abandoning ourselves or really trying to appease to people more than is healthy for us?
Yeah. So I like to encourage people to, I call it sacred pause. When people make a request of you, instead of an automatic yes,
Mm.
to allow yourself to slow down, even if it means saying, let me get back to you or let me think about that, so that I actually consider, do I have the time for it? Do I have the energy for it? Am I interested in doing that? Uh, for what purpose?
Mm.
Am I the only one who can do that?
Hmm.
And if I do that, what is it I won't be able to do?
Yeah.
Because whenever I say yes to something, I'm saying no to something else. And sometimes the thing I'm saying no to is myself, right? That if I say yes to that, then that means I won't be able to relax on Saturday. And I had planned to have a day where I was going to relax. So, then let me think about what I need, want, and desire, not just always having to say yes to everyone all the time. And so then boundary setting is recognizing to say yes to my mental health sometimes I have to say no. And being willing to say no, even though some people won't like it, some people might be disappointed, some people um, will be bothered by your boundaries, and that's okay. That's okay.
Mm. I think this also requires us to flip the script, especially for women, where we've been conditioned our whole lives to sacrifice and
Yes,
to really be the source of sustenance and be the rock in a family unit.
yes,
I know that it's
yes.
something that we particularly struggle with.
Absolutely. And the message of when people say, like, what does a good daughter look like? Or what
Yes,
is a good mother,
mother,
a good
yeah.
sister, a good spouse
Yeah. And
that,
culture too.
yeah,
Certain cultures like mine, it's even
yes,
more, collectivist
right.
cultures. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
where there is no room for you. And
Mm-mm.
what I like to say is we're a part of the community. So if the
Yeah.
community deserves care, so do we, right? It's not everyone except us. And so a part of how we can do that, especially when a culture is teaching us something else, uh, is to have reciprocal, mutual sister relationships where instead of just being the strong one in the group, like to have sister friends where we support each other, where we encourage each other, where we help each other to set boundaries, to be able to say, you know, I'm going to take, your kids this weekend so that you can rest. And then there'll be some future time where you'll do something of care for me so that I can either rest or do something pleasurable or fun. So we create that space for each other so that we can actually be well instead of certain ones just always having to be there for everyone else and no one being there for them.
Mm. I love that. So, a circle of sisterhood. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Yes.
how it was back in the day when we had
Right.
bigger communities
Uh-huh.
that were sort of interdependent.
Right. Right.
We need to
So it's
return to
the,
those
because we
times.
say, collectivistic, but often there are like these lone rangers who are carrying everybody else. And so instead, like, let's actually then do community care where I don't just give, but I receive. So when is it my turn to receive and
Mm.
not just Mother's Day?
Yeah, absolutely. And so many people need to hear that because they have a tough
Yeah.
time receiving.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I should say that sometimes we blame everybody else for those systems, but there's a way in which we participate. Sometimes out of guilt, but also for some people, they get a certain sense of self-worth out of it, of like, I'm, the noble one, I'm the strong one. And when we're struggling, we disappear, we hide, we don't let people see our struggle. We just show up shiny and strong. And so then I have to
Mm.
say, what are the ways I am co-creating this system that denies my humanity?
Yeah. So they sort of take on the identity of martyr or,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
like
And
the
so to lay
rescuer,
down
the
that
rescuer.
and
Yeah.
right, right, that feels important. It feels valuable. It
And that
feels
is
like,
ego
oh,
driven too, right?
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, that they need me. If it wasn't for me, they would fall apart. And I should say,
Mm.
especially around parenting and siblinghood, that sometimes we're so busy rescuing that it impedes people from launching or developing, where there are some things they could do for themselves, but we're so quick to jump in
Mm.
that we're blocking their blooming. We block it.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the upcoming launch of my new book titled The Nomadic Soul, a seeker's guide to finding a sense of self and belonging in the modern world, which highlights a profound yet often unexplored part of your identity that holds the key to everything from answering your biggest questions to finding deeper meaning and joy in everyday life. Visit thenomadicsoulbook.com to learn more, download a free chapter, or to buy a copy. And I think a lot of this is rooted in wounds that we have had accumulated over the years. You do explore that in the book. You talk about relationship wounds, things like betrayal, loneliness, broken connections. Of course, we won't be able to touch on all of them. So I encourage people to get the book if you want to get more details on that. But I definitely want to talk about it at a higher level. I mean, these invisible scars that we accumulate from past relationships, whether from childhood, friendships, or romantic relationships. In your experience, Dr. Thema, what is the first step toward healing those wounds so that they don't keep influencing us and shaping the relationships that we build in our life?
Yeah. The first thing is to acknowledge the wound and to see it as a wound,
Mm.
because sometimes we don't realize that we're walking around wounded and we think like that's just me or that's just how you're supposed to be in relationships. So I have to see it uh, as a negative consequence in order to want to change it, to tell myself the truth of like, oh, I have trust issues and I know where that came from, but I don't want to remain that way. Or, oh, I'm defensive or combative. And that came out of perhaps the way I was raised, but I know there's another way to be. And so to recognize your patterns, your wounds, the ways in which you survived a toxic situation
Mm-hmm.
are not the same ways that you want to love in a healthy relationship, right? So, some people, because they were with a cheater, developed this like a controlling pattern. And so you're controlling, maybe even like tracking people, constantly monitoring people, interpreting everything as an offense. And so when you were in that, there's a reason for it of why you started doing that. But when you're trying to build healthy relationships, then I would need to be willing to see how those behaviors are unhealthy, right? So I encourage people to take time to reflect, whether that's in journaling, in therapy, and simply sitting and thinking about it, of what are the habits and the mindset I developed based on my past, and what are the other options? What are other ways of being so that I can move in the direction of a healthier way of relating?
Mm. And it's a process, right? I mean, speaking from
Yeah.
personal experience, I
Mm.
I worked with a therapist to learn about my own patterns of
Yeah.
relating, and it took a while to rewire myself, and I'm still trying to get it right.
Yes.
It's not something that happens overnight, especially if it's deeply entrenched in your way of
Right.
being, and you've had some
Yeah.
really difficult toxic relationships.
Mhm.
Can be harder, like, to
Right.
resolve it.
And I'm glad you said that, because often what people aren't prepared for is that healing can feel awkward.
Very. Oh
Right?
my
We're
gosh,
we're
yes.
you're we're like we have the idea of it'll just be freeing and wonderful and happy,
No.
but when you're used to operating in a particular way,
Yeah,
it can be startling,
very.
one, to say like, oh, like, there's another way, or that's a quote unquote unhealthy or wrong, and so then to shift that, it's gonna feel awkward of like, oh, that's different.
Yeah. Yeah, and the triggers, oh my goodness, those are the toughest ones
hmm
to like resolve.
Yes. Yes. To not, not to not allow it to pull you back into your
Yes.
old ways of being.
Yes. Yes, that takes time, but at
Yeah.
least having that awareness and
Hmm.
that willingness to start working on it, I think
Yeah.
it's a great starting point.
Mhm.
And something that a lot of people struggle with is emotional availability. I know this is something that is quite prevalent in the world of romantic relationships. We come
Yeah.
across people who exhibit behaviors of not being fully open, not willing to be
Mhm.
vulnerable
Mhm.
in that context. So tell us about that. Emotional unavailability. Like, what are some of the signs that someone is emotionally unavailable, and what can we do about it? How can we
Mhm.
begin to open up?
Yeah. So one, I will say, which, is the biggest sign, is some people will tell you, and we don't hear it or receive it or believe it when they say, I'm not looking for a relationship, right? And then we're like, I'm going to win them over, right? I'm going to love them harder.
Yeah, it's a
I'm going to
challenge.
stay. I'm going to like be the sweetest person ever, and
Yeah.
then they're going to love me. So, we don't want to receive the no. Some people know themselves and they're like, I came out of a rough relationship. I'm not looking to get back in a relationship. So some people own it and are
Yeah,
like, yeah, I don't want that. Then it can also look like confusion where they don't say I don't want it, they're just uncertain.
yeah,
So they kind of keep you on a string, or people call it breadcrumbing, where they give you just enough attention to keep you around, but they're not really showing a commitment or an
yeah.
openness. So, you know, confusion is also emotional unavailability when people uh, don't know what they want, or, they want the benefits of your presence, but not the work of the heart, right? That heart work is stretching, can be uncomfortable. Um, Serial infidelity can be a sign of emotional unavailability because if I'm just juggling a lot of people, I don't have to let anybody in, right? I'm just going from the next to the next, like keeping them on rotation and keeping myself occupied and not really being present. Um, People who emotionally shut down when you share your feelings, that's emotional unavailability. So, they may shut down with anger, or they might just shut down in silence, that they don't have the capacity to hear your concerns, your feelings, your feedback, your needs, that they get angry that you have a feeling or a thought. That's also emotional unavailability.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear the collective go amen.
Yes. Yes.
Because
Yeah.
I'm sure they're like, yep, been there,
Right?
done that.
Been
Yeah.
there, seen that
Um,
happen.
yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. But I wonder if these people who tend to be emotionally available, perhaps they're afraid of getting enmeshed, or maybe they don't know how to relate in a healthy way. Perhaps I don't know, they can be codependent, they're narcissists, or something could prevent them from relating to someone in a healthy way, in an intimate, deep way. And not to
Hmm.
excuse that behavior, but perhaps that could be something that's blocking them from
Sure.
staying with one person.
Yes. Yes. So then if you're on the receiving end of that, you have to decide, am I going to try to be their therapist? Which
Oh,
is what some
yeah.
of us do, right? We
Yes.
try to be the rehabilitation center of like, oh, they want to commit, they're just having problems. So I'm going to be the faith, I'm going to outlast them, right? Now, here's the distinction.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who have difficulty opening up, but they want to and they're working on it. They just don't know how. And so then like you're not dragging them along or trying to convince them. They have the awareness, because I have clients like that who will say, I'm in this relationship. They keep wanting me to open up and I don't know how to do it, or I don't know what they're
Yeah,
wanting from me. But they're
exactly.
doing the work to heal and to learn those skills.
Yeah. I'd imagine that those are mostly men.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's the socialization because, for boys and men, they get the double message. Boys are often told to like hold it in, like don't cry, don't be quote unquote soft, don't be emotional. And then they get in relationships where, when they're straight, where the women in their lives are saying, why don't you open up to me? What are you feeling? It's like we told them to shut it down and
Yeah.
then we want them. So it's a double message. And so
Mm.
there can be like a confusion about like, well, which one is it? Am I
Mm.
supposed to be like the strong silent type? Or am I supposed to be like this flood of emotions and expressive about all these feelings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And what if someone realizes that they don't want to be someone's therapist, that
Yes.
they
As they
just
should not be if they're
had
a romantic
enough,
partner.
they're done, they
Yes.
don't want this project anymore that doesn't seem to
Yes.
be
Yes.
yielding anything.
Right.
How can they release their relationships? Because, letting go can be incredibly painful. I mean,
Yes.
even
Yeah.
when we know it's the healthy choice for us, right?
Right.
What guidance do you generally offer for those who are trying to discern whether to leave or not? And if they decide to leave, how can they begin that process?
Sure. Sure. So, I uh, invite people to think about, yes, relationships are work. However, are we working together to address our issues? Or am I working to heal myself from the harms this relationship is causing me? And am
Mm,
I trying to pull the person into something that they do not desire for themselves?
yeah,
Um,
that's really important. Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes we're in love with people's potential. We're
Yeah.
in love with who they could be if they were how we wanted them to be.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right? Which
Yeah.
is not the same thing as loving the person. It's like if only they would do these things, it would be
Mm.
perfect. And it's like, are these things that they want to do? Are these things that are a part of them?
Do
Or are
they have
you
the
trying to make
capacity
them
to do
into
it?
something? Yes, that's true. That's true. So, we say, what is fulfilling or nourishing or uh, positive about this relationship, and what are the costs? What is not fulfilling, what is maybe hurtful, and then along with looking at like you can say like the pros and cons of it,
Hmm.
but to also look at how does this person respond to my feedback, right? Meaning, do I see any growth? So, it's not going to be quote unquote perfect, and we're not perfect, but um, is it moving in the right direction, or am I just kind of like walking in circles or talking to a wall because they either don't have the capacity or don't have the will to show up in the ways that I would like to be loved.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and that can be hard to discern because it's all subjective, right? It's all about uh, you
But
know,
for yourself.
for
Yeah.
yourself.
So,
And yeah.
and that's okay because I think sometimes when we think it has to be objective, that would mean everybody is a match for anyone. And that, like, so in other words, me deciding this isn't good for me doesn't mean this is a bad person. It means we don't align. So objectively, I may say there are many great qualities in them, and someone else would like love it as it is. But for me personally, it's
Mm.
not meeting my needs, desires, or wants in the ways that I would like. And I've tried to talk with them about it, and there's no shift.
Yeah. Okay, so that it's putting you in the driver's seat, right?
Yes, because you're choosing for you. So it's not your evaluation of, is this a good person, period,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
No, it's not good or bad. Is it aligned? Is it
Yeah.
a match, right? I remember, just give a personal story when I was um, in my early 20s. I was dating a guy, and we came from like two very different backgrounds where both of our parents were like still married, still together. But as I had mentioned, I think that my mom used to do like women's retreats and do these various activities. It's both my parents were kind of busy people, loved each other, but had very active lives. And the person I was dating, his father owned a business, and the mom was a receptionist at the dad's business. On the weekends and evenings, the mom is always home. If the dad goes and plays golf, the mom brings his lunch to the golf course. Like it's a very different picture. And so, anyone who you read my bio or sees my life, he got very anxious about like the fact that I'm an active person. And so, what I had to come to is neither of us are bad people, but our rhythm and expectations for life don't align. Just
Oh,
doesn't match. Like you need someone who like doesn't go anywhere. And that's not a bad, it's plenty of people, it's
yeah,
plenty of
yeah,
people who that's how they will live their lives and be
yeah.
happy with it, right? For me, I that would feel limiting, right?
Hmm.
It's just not me.
Yeah.
So then, the people who I gravitate toward and connect with, uh, find like my rhythm life-giving.
I love that line. Find your life rhythm, life-giving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it requires self-love, having
Yes.
self-worth, saying that you're worthy of having that kind of relationship that
Yes.
complements your lifestyle.
That's right. That's right. And it requires us trusting the process because sometimes we hold on because we don't feel we have options. Let's
Oh
be
yeah,
honest
that's a
about
big
that,
one.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The
It's
scarcity
like
mindset. Yeah.
the scarcity is like, let me
All the
hold
good
on to
ones
these
are taken.
breadcrumbs. Yes, exactly. So this isn't really nourishing, but it's better than nothing. So I'll just keep it. And sometimes we do that until quote unquote something better comes along. And then we
Mm.
drop people and are like, in the next month we are engaged. And they're like, how'd that happen? Because you were already disconnected, just waiting for something else.
All right, Dr. Thema. I always like to end these conversations with something reflective.
Mm.
If someone listening today feels disconnected from themselves, from love, or finding deeper wisdom in their own heart, what is one step that they could take to begin finding their way back to themselves?
Yes. So I invite you, there is a quote by Howard Thurman which says, do the thing that makes you come alive because far too few of us are actually alive. And so I invite you to think about what's something that when you're doing it, it feels like home. Something, a simple pleasure that gives you joy, that just the thought of doing it brings a smile to your face. And to then set aside, carve out more time to do those things. So for me, like that thing is dancing, right? I love to dance, but when I get busy or disconnected, then I'll miss that. And so then let me just turn on some music and dance. And then like now I'm coming back to myself.
What type
So
of
to do the
dance?
All kinds. I do.
Okay.
I grew up in dance classes, so
Okay. Okay.
yeah,
I would never
yeah,
have guessed, but there you go.
yes, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then it brings you back to you. For some people, it might be baking, it might be taking a walk in nature, it may
Mm.
be like that you need to call your grandmother. It could, whatever that is, that your reclamation, what helps you to reclaim you, a simple practice.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful note to end on. Dr. Thema, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom so generously today. I am so grateful for your presence and for the thoughtful insights you brought to this conversation. It was a pleasure
Ah,
speaking to you.
thank you for having me. I so enjoyed it.
So, for everyone listening, if this conversation resonated with you, I encourage you to check out Matters of the Heart. It's a powerful guide to healing your relationship with yourself and the people that you love. You can also learn more about Dr. Thema's work and find her resources on her website, drthema.com. The link will be in the description.